The state television campaign in Western Armenia represents the most important news for today. Good day. Today's broadcast. Western Armenia is ready to protect the rights of Tavush residents. Armenag Aprahamian. Tribute to Stéphane Margossian. It is necessary to take steps to stop the violations to the rights of Armenian prisoners of war. De-escalation at borders and within our borders. Vahe Hovhannisyan. Only 1,400 people from Artsakh applied for citizenship of Eastern Armenia. News from Javakhk. Salome, the restored masterpiece of Vardges Surenyants, is displayed in the National Gallery of Armenia. The correspondent of Western Armenia TV had an interview with the first president of the Republic of Western Armenia, Armenag Aprahamian. Armenag Aprahamian talked about the urgent regional events that have a direct connection with both Western and Eastern Armenia. He analyzed the situation and gave clear assessments. Armenag Aprahamian expressed the position of Western Armenia regarding Tavush and emphasized that Western Armenia is ready to protect the rights of Tavush residents. You can watch the interview of Armenag Aprahamian on the YouTube page of Western Armenia TV. The Margossian family, relatives and officials gathered at St. Jacob's Church in Lyon in France to pay tribute to the deceased Stéphane Margossian, covered with the flag of Western Armenia. After the end of the liturgy, Reverend Father Sahakyan suggested the family to make a speech. President Ms. Lydia Margossian gave a speech and recalled the way of her father and his family from Western Armenia to France. The Committee of the Protection of Fundamental Rights of the People of Artsakh issued a statement regarding the suspension of Baku's violation of the rights established by the Geneva Convention. In particular, it is mentioned in the statement. It's necessary to take immediate steps to stop Baku's violation toward the rights of Armenian prisoners of war that were established by the Geneva Convention. The Committee for the Protection of Fundamental Rights of the Artsakh people is seriously concerned by the latest reports which describe in detail Baku's gross violations of the rights of Armenian prisoners of war, particularly in relation to the fundamental principle of the right to be free from public curiosity, which is enshrined in the Third Geneva Convention on the treatment of prisoners of war. These actions are not only reprehensible from a moral point of view, but also directly contradict to the international humanitarian law. Article 14 of the Third Geneva Convention directly prohibits prisoners of war from being subjected to public scrutiny. The public broadcast of videos depicting prisoners of war in Baku is a gross violation of their rights to privacy and dignity according to that convention. Article 27 of the Fourth Geneva Convention similarly prohibits such public demonstrations against civilians. Moreover, these actions violate the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which affirms the right to privacy and protection from arbitrary interference with private life, family, home, or correspondence. Broadcasting of staged interviews with Armenian prisoners of war and hostages by Baku is a direct violation of their rights and worsens their nowadays difficult situation. We are ready to work with the international community in the direction of eliminating these violations and ensuring the protection of the rights of all persons affected by the conflict. We call on all state leaders and international organizations to continue to demand the immediate and unconditional release of all Armenians who are illegally held captive in Baku. It is our collective duty to observe the relevant principles of the Geneva Conventions and human rights, as well as to protect the dignity and well-being of all prisoners of war and hostages illegally held in captivity in Baku. All abnormal, dangerous scenarios are expected in Eastern Armenia. A political scientist, Vahe Hovhannisyan, wrote about this on his Facebook page. In particular, he noted, the preacher formulates the ideological base of future disasters. Our people, our families, our children live in this country. We have no right to become victims of another experiment. In order to get our country out of the 99% minefield, we need competent content and effective work formats. In my deep conviction, the right content is de-escalation. Eastern Armenia needs de-escalation at the borders and inside the borders. The interesting thing is that Eastern Armenia has already started to generate the same ideas as Western Armenia did from different sides. Western Armenia has the legal format that can protect the interests of Armenia and Armenians on international platforms. Only 1,447 people from Artsakh applied for citizenship of Eastern Armenia who were forcibly displaced from Artsakh and moved to Eastern Armenia. Minister of Internal Affairs Vahe said this at the meeting of the Standing Committee on Defense and Security of the National Assembly of Eastern Armenia. I want to refer to the process of registration of forcibly displaced persons as a result of the military operations unleashed by Baku against Artsakh. The works on receiving temporary protection certificate registration for applying for citizenship are continuing, said Vahe. 4 students from the first and second public schools of Javakhk participated in the role-playing game Model United Nations in Tbilisi and will now be trained by trainers who teach other children to participate in the game, which aims to maintain strong ties between the United Nations and the UN model among the participants of the game all over the world and involve young people in solving global problems. UN Model is a popular role-playing game for those who want to learn more about the activities of the United Nations. Each year, hundreds of thousands of high school and college students from all over the world participate at all levels of education. Many of today's leaders in law, government, business, and the art, including the United Nations itself, participated in the UN Model program as students. In the first phase, the participants of the program had to undergo training in Javakhk to get to know what the United Nations is and how this organization works and to contradict the model United Nations among themselves. In Javakhk, they are working on women's economic empowerment. In Javakhk, Adult Education Center implements the Promotion of Women's Economic Empowerment program, which aims to provide local women with the necessary knowledge and skills to run their own businesses. For this purpose, the Adult Education Center announces various courses for the admission of women. Within the framework of the program, the Adult Education Center in Javakhk offers training course for women over 18 years of age, which will provide them with the skills and abilities to manage their own businesses and strengthen leadership skills in the future. Within the framework of the program, participants will be able to master various trades, undergo various trainings to find finance for projects and advocacy, develop leadership and business skills, learn the basics of digital marketing, and understand computer technologies. Within the framework of the program, women over the age of 18 can register for various courses and trainings by calling the following number 595 562505. The project is planned for 4 months. The National Gallery of Armenia continues the history of the Restored exhibit project. This year presents the story of the restoration of the famous masterpiece depicting the most mysterious figure of all time. Still in 2019, portrait of Salome removed from the permanent display and moved to the restoration studio, returned to the exhibition hall. According to Marine Hakopian, director of the National Gallery of Armenia, the history of the Restored exhibit project was launched in the gallery in 2021, in the framework of which 4 masterpieces were restored and presented to the public. Now, after a long break, one of the treasures of Armenian and world fine art, the famous work Salome by Vardges Surenyants, the founder of the national history painting, has returned to the exhibition of the National Gallery of Armenia. It should be noted that in 1929 this masterpiece was transferred from Rome to Yerevan and was always presented in the National Gallery of Armenia. In 2019, Salome was transferred to the Restoration and the Conservation Department of the National Gallery of Armenia through restoration. The last 5 years, the complex restoration of one of the most impressive and influential paintings of Vardges Surenyants, Salome, has returned to its former appearance and splendor. Next to the restored canvas of the greatest master of Armenian fine arts, Vardges Surenyants, the summary video and working photos representing the long process of restoration and are also shown with their explanations. The first exhibition hall reproduces a corner of a restoration workshop, a work table with appropriate tools and materials, a painter, etc. Among the most interesting specimens of the Saboria are microscope and an ultraviolet lamp, with which the visitor can independently examine the restored part of the work, colorings and other interventions. The exhibition also presents a tactile copy of the painting Salome, made for people with visual impairments. This was all for today. Goodbye.